presenting Equals. Equals. Welcome back to Y.E.S, everyone. Today we're going to talk about Equals, the fifth studio album released by Ed Sheeran. And yes, fifth album. Some people are saying it's the fourth. Number 6 Collaborations was an album. I get it. It was perceived as just this collaborative kind of thing. It was released like an album. Therefore, it's one. Moving on. Now, Ed Sheeran actually is one of the few artists who I have reviewed his entire album discography, and I've grown to see a little bit more of his musical evolution along the way. And after Divide, it looked like he was kind of experimenting a little bit more. Right now, he's kind of going back to some of his roots. I get it, number 6 Collaborations was just basically an experimentation that went kaboom. But here, on my first listen to the album, I wasn't really sure what I was getting into. I remember liking some of the music, and then there was other songs where I'm just like, I'm just kind of going through the motions. And I'm really, really glad that I gave this album a second in-depth listen, because there's a lot lyrically here that totally went over my head. Like, I was surprised how much depth I found in the songs that I really enjoyed here. Now, this album is 14 tracks long. I really like 7 of them. I really like 7 of them. The other 7, I don't really know if I would say there's a bad song in here, but it's really strange because I know distinctly what are kind of my gripes with each song. They're like little things, but in my mind, it's really awkward because I feel like I can identify what I personally, so this is me, what I personally would adjust or fix. But it's weird because in my mind I'm like, well, I would fix that, but I don't know if it would change my attitude or change my perception or interest in the song after that. So it's almost like I feel like maybe he needed to do something completely different or just add another element to replace it. It's very peculiar. It's one of the few times where I'm just like, I don't know how to make those individual songs better. Now, I'm going to make one exception, the song Visiting Hours, which is a very sentimental song for Ed Sheeran for one of his friends in the music industry. And that one, I can identify. That is something I have an issue with, but the songwriting for that song is, in fact, very good. I wouldn't change anything about the songwriting itself. Lyrically, he does an excellent job. It's just some production things, the way that the song kind of progresses that, I could tweak that. And then maybe, for me, I would like this song more. So that's one of the few songs that's an exception for me. But now that I've got that out of the way, I really want to talk about the songs that I really like. And then at the end, I have to tie it into how I view this progression for Ed Sheeran and how I kind of compare this with his other albums after finishing my recommendation. Starting off with the album, first 2 songs, Tides and Shivers. These are songs where I'm like, this is him trying to still play and experiment with this kind of poppy, kind of rockish oriented style that it's just like, we don't really know if this works. This is something we've seen him do before, but it hasn't always been executed correctly. And when I was thinking that, I was thinking, why don't we just go back to your bread and butter with the acoustic stuff? And literally just after that, the 3rd track does exactly that, titled First Times. I can't wait to make a million more first times. It's just simple acoustics, but also this is where I feel like he hones his songwriting really well. There's a lot of people who think about first times about anything, whether it's with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or their eventual spouse, or their kids, or their grandparents, or their parents. There's a lot of first times for a lot of stuff. And the songwriting just made me think about that. I was like, oh man, yeah, it's really fun to do a lot of first times. It's really great to have traditions. Everybody loves to have traditions. But then also creating new memories with someone, this song really honed in on what that feeling really is like and how precious that can be to somebody. The next song I'd like to talk about is the lead single, Bad Habits. Now, this is funny because I've probably heard this song at least 4 times, and the first few times, I don't think I got it. I watched it first time when the music video also dropped, and I really thought that music video was, it's creatively interesting, but also just kind of weird and just kind of out of whack. And I just I don't know if I get this. And then I finally hyper focused on what the lyrics really were saying. It's really kind of talking about addictions. And the tone of the song kind of comes from a point of view where it's I kind of accept that this is a trial or this is a temptation I have, and I recognize what you are, and it's almost like he's saying he has kind of a mutual respect because he recognizes that he could be potentially stronger than what his temptations are, but he also knows he's just as easily able to fall down as well. And there's a lot of people who are suggesting that it's talking a lot more on his personal level about drinking, but the way that the lyrics were written, I could see this applying for a number of other things. And the older I get, the more I feel this might have something to do with this for me, or this for maybe someone else that I know. There's a lot of trials you could just insert into that, and I'm like, this still applies. You have this temptation, you have this addiction, you have this trial, and if you understand how you get to those points when you're on a slippery slope, maybe those are the situations where you can avoid them. It's really funny because it doesn't really necessarily feel like a song of encouragement. It's just kind of somber. It's really strange. I really like it a lot more now after 4 listens. And I actually think in some way it's supposed to give you hope that you can overcome it, but it also acknowledges kind of the human flaw of what its subject is. That felt like a mouthful. Okay, let's get on to the next few songs. A song that I really feel like he could highlight as a single is Collide. And if you want to get another example of where his energy just comes out with a lot of electricity in the inner body, listen to Stop the Rain. That one I was just like, holy moly, it's so infectious, and I'm like, I want to take some of that energy and just bring it in, and I was just like, this is gonna help me get going on whatever it is on my mind right now. That really got me going, and I was like, yeah, come on, Ed, you can do this, yeah. So, yeah, I have a lot of positives in here, and that's 4 of them right there. Now, I don't normally talk about comparisons with other channels, but I kind of looked at a couple just gradually. I feel like a lot of people are kind of coming to the same route I am. It kind of feels like there's a lot of people who took some positives and took some negatives and are kind of in a happy medium, but because Ed is so big now, it kind of feels like it's somewhat of a letdown in a way. And I've seen a couple other people who judge it way more harshly, and in a way, I understand it, because I don't really know if I feel like there's a song in here that feels like Perfect, or We Found Love, or Shape of You, or, anything that feels like a gargantuan hit single. There are songs in here where I'm like, that could work if there was the right video, promotional, or something like that. I think it could work, but as a whole album, and as I mentioned before, I'm kind of divided on half the songs really being good and the other half of the songs being kind of acceptable, but I don't want just acceptable, and so therefore it almost feels like a failure. It's not, but it kind of leans in that direction. Just as a quick example of a song like that, I would put Sandman as one of those examples. It kind of feels like Ed Sheeran's version of creating his own lullaby for his child, and the idea of it is cute, and some of the songwriting and some of the production is like, that is really cute, but as a whole project, I'm not really sure if I'm necessarily engaged with it. It probably means a lot to him because it's, for his child. But as a song here in the album, I'm not really sure if it pays off as a listener. Just something to think about. But I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts. So after having listened and reviewed this album, and with the following grades in the categories mentioned here, how would I recommend this album? I am going to give it a good. And having said that, where do I align this album in his discography? I think it's my third favorite album. I would go Divide first, Plus second, and then Equals. X is really good for what its hit singles are and a couple of deep tracks. But there are a lot of songs in there where I have some issues with. So that album as a whole, second least favorite. And then number 6, Collaborations, is at the bottom. But let me know what you guys think. Where do you align this album? Because I feel like a lot of people are kind of torn. I feel like maybe we wanted to hype up Ed Sheeran. I mean, for heaven's sakes, he's a good artist. But where do you align yourself with this album? Are you excited about it? Are you disappointed by it? Or are you kind of like me where it's like, it's a happy medium? But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow me in my social media links down in the description below. And insert cool call to action graphics right here. Be sure to follow these so you can come back here. And I want to see you again, where you can come discover, promote, and review the best in entertainment, culture, and lifestyle, while not forgetting quality, values, and fun. And above all, get that yes in your life. See you next time.